poem is entitled Bone on Bone, but it was originally entitled My Mother's China, so that you'd have a little something to hang your hat about. I don't know about you. I hear there are writing groups where I live now, and people write glowing, wonderful things about their mother. And I had a wonderful mother, but she was also a complicated mother. And for some of us, the need to become our own person is part of our life's journey. So this is a poem that has to do with my relationship with my mother and how it evolved, and what I hope you'll in a way that for me was a positive evolution. And hopefully it may say something to you about your relationship with your mother. It doesn't have to have anything to do with my specific poem, but I hope that it might help you remember your mother's. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Bone on bone. I turned my back on some of your skills before I really learned them. Bridge parties, lemon tarts with whipped cream piped around the edges, 3-layered tea sandwiches without the crusts. Because of all the hours I judged you'd lost there, the chaotic kitchen, the cleanups that always fell to me. I got rid of your impatience right from the beginning. The timekeeper tyrant who kept you running until it seemed to me you missed your life. In that, I might have gone too far, and now I want some back. Your maxims I weeded out along the way, though I confess that job took years. If it's true that God will only help the ones who help themselves, then who needs God? Airing dirty laundry is sometimes therapeutic. The bed I make is not the only one I always have to lie in. There is no actual rule. But I do cherish your English bone china, that set of 32 with a gold rim and green border you bought from Uncle Jack's jewelry store in Ottawa and confirmed at the Sweet 16 luncheon you made for me. In fact, I think it would please you to know I use that china every day. Whenever I take a plate from the cupboard, I share the meal with you. It's easier now since you've become my guest.
Wow.
Nice. I like that.
Yes.
Good image.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you feel the need to hear it again, or would you like to see it?
The last verse, read the last verse, because I didn't get the last 2 lines, and I know.
Okay, I dropped them, and my kids say always, Mother, don't drop the ends of your sentences, which I know better than doing. In fact, I think it would please you to know I use that china every day. Whenever I take a plate from the cupboard, I share the meal with you. It's easier now since you've become my guest.
My what?
My guest,
Guest.
yes.
Okay.
Instead of I
Yeah,
being
sitting
her
at the
guest,
mother's table,
now
she's-
she's my guest.
Right.
Does that make
Yes.
any
Yes.
sense? So, as I say, this is not necessarily your story, but does this bring up anything in terms of memories of your own mother's and your relationships with her? Yes.
What I was going to
Barbara.
say is, when you started reading, and I thought, that's what my girls are thinking of me. This was the life that I gave them, so to speak. And at this stage, for birthdays, it was very special. But I can see them listening to that and say, oh my God, Mom, that's, you did that for us. And they liked it, it was memory. And of course, when I was doing it, it was tedious and whatever, but I enjoyed it because I was doing it with love for my family. But I think I went overboard sometime, and I didn't see it then. They say that, yeah, you really went overboard sometime. But it's a good relationship now, so I must have done something
Well, I'm
wrong.
sure you did. I think, my mother's been gone for quite a while. I think the older I get, the more I understand my mother. My sense of my mother was that she wanted me to be so much like her, that there wasn't, and I tried to be a very good daughter, but there wasn't, from my perspective, enough room to be who I was and still please her. She was hard to please, as I understood her. And now I understand a lot more about how every generation lives according to the culture and what seems to be the right way to live. And you know, and especially the Bird group of women, if you're fortunate enough to have had children, we do the best we can according to what we know at the time. And that is not intention. In fact, late in my mother's life, we finally talked a little. My mother was easily hurt, so being able to talk to her was not something that went well. And I asked her why she needed for me to be so perfect. And she said she really didn't know because she wasn't perfect herself. But she didn't live long enough for us to go beyond that in terms of a conversation. So there was this private sort of chafing at, you know, how could I? Not that I was conscious so much of trying to be me as I was always, and she was eager for me to have those accomplishments that I told you about. But she at the same time wanted me to be the traditional housewife. Very hard to pull that off.
Were you an only daughter?
I was the only daughter, yeah. Anybody else want to say anything?
I think it might have also been justification for the way she had lived. That if you assumed those same characteristics, that verified that she had done right in her life too.
What Barbara's saying is it might have been justification to
Can
my
you
mother.
speak up? We can't hear.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said it might also have been her mother needing justification for the way the mother had lived. That if her daughter could live that way, then that showed that was the right way to
Right.
live.
That is a good concept, yes, definitely.
How many of you have children? And have any of you been surprised at how your children are you know, how their journeys are going compared to what you expected?
I have 3 daughters,
Yeah.
and it's a different world now. And my children were born in the 70s, and most of their lives, from 1980 on, I was a single mom. And so, you know, you want something better for your children than what you had for yourself. And it's very hard sometimes not to try to impose your life on them. And it's been a real education for me, raising the girls. And they've turned out, they're very, I want to say they're not like me at all, but they are. They are. They each have something that is the best of me. But they're all very individual, and and I'm very, very proud of them. And I'm very,
It takes some doing, doesn't it, Billy, to get you to understand that what you're looking at is that where core values may be there that you really had hoped would be there, but that how it looks on the exterior is not, you know, they're not clones of us. They're going to live their own lives according to the culture they're in and whatever they were meant to be as people. So but it takes a special mother, I think,
well,
to be willing to sort of look into her own heart and say, wait a minute, that's okay.
and I lost my mother when I was 8. So I didn't have that role model. I mean, I did from my aunts, I had a stepmom who was very different than my real mother, my biological mother. And so I was trying to be what was missing in my life for my daughters. So,
What I picked up on from your poem was how your mother was always so busy.
She
That
was
you
very
felt
busy.
like somehow she didn't have enough time for you because she was so busy doing everything. So I got a little sadness there that you wish she had taken more time to just be with you, rather than always be busy making something or doing something.
I think that's accurate, and at the same time, I think as I look back over my mother's life and what the dynamics of her life, she lost her father when she was 8 months old. She was but she wouldn't have had anyway. You know, she was the youngest of 6 children. I can't even imagine what an infant being held by a family in grief like that, you know, would have been getting through her physical body. And she always suffered from an anxiety that I think was something that she could never understand. And that she was always in a hurry, always in a hurry. And yes, you are correct. So when I say that in the poem, that I wish that I had some of that impatience back, because I think I overcorrected by becoming overly patient. And it took me a lot of my life to realize that, sometimes one can be patient to a fault. And that isn't so great either. That we think we're sort of doing, well, I'm going to do that better than the way that I experienced it, but instead we go so far the other direction. And that actually we make new mistakes. I mean, we're human. What can we do? We do the best we can and can only hope that.
Well, my mother had lost her mother when she was only 14. And so she really felt she didn't have much of a childhood because she ended up taking on a lot of the household responsibilities. And so when she had all of us, I was one of 5 children, she wanted us to have a good time and to play and enjoy our childhood. But then that spoiled us, I think, So it was hard to take on the responsibilities when you just had a good time. So you're right, sometimes you go too far the other way.
So do you think your mother actually did overcorrect and it would have been better for you to have a little bit more of a sense of responsibility?
I don't know.
I think you've got a lucky brain.
She's a very happy person.
I was. I'm a very happy person.
I wonder if your mother ever wondered if she had overcorrected.
Oh, she apologized to all of us for yelling so much, and I don't remember her yelling, but I know I yelled a lot at my kids, so it was one generation to the next.
I think too, the culture has changed so much that for us, our children, and now our grandchildren, our lives are so different the way we were brought up.
Oh.
What do we do with our beautiful china? Nobody wants it.
That's true.
I know.
What do we do
They
with
can't
it?
put it in the dishwasher.
Nobody wants it in our family.
That's the part of the
Linen
point
tablecloths either.
And linen.
They have to wash
Iron
them.
them?
They have to send it to the
No,
cleaners.
and antique everything. Nobody
Everyone-
wants any of
Nobody
it.
wants it. And of course, they've
But
got
you're
those
talking about
wonderful.
the culture that our children have grown up into. I think that's why that they can come now, when they come and visit, and they talk about, oh, remember when you did this, you did that. And I was such a perfectionist that only I could put up the Christmas tree. And so one time my daughter said, you know what we used to do at night when you and Dad were out of the living room? My friends would come over and we'd move the decoration on the tree because they didn't, I never noticed it. But then they can talk about that. They have fun talking about that now. And they're free enough to just say,
That's-
rag on you
That's
and love you
good,
at
yes,
the same time.
Yes.
I like that about that, because I never did that. I was raised with my grandmother and aunts and uncles. So I didn't have that, like you said, your mother was such a fun person, I had, I'm sure, a very good childhood, but I can't remember one birthday. And I know that every birthday I had a birthday cake, but it was I don't remember that. And my kids can remember every one of theirs. So I like this easiness now that,
You don't remember.
and when they come home, we talk about the dishes and the pictures on the wall and this and that. And they've already said, well, you can sell that, I'm not gonna be interested in that. So before I sell something, I take a picture and I say, do you want this? They say, no, goes to the consignment shop.
So I ended up casting on my daughters. Well, I had already given my wedding china. My mother gave me her china while she was still living. She said she wanted, because like you, she really was an artist in the kitchen, and and in entertaining and all of that. And she said she wanted the pleasure of knowing that I was enjoying it while she was living, which actually I thought was one of the wonderful gifts that she gave me.
That's beautiful.
So I had it for years, and I did use it. I thought, I'm not going to worry about the dishwasher. I'm going to use it and enjoy it, and so that she has the pleasure of knowing that I was using it. But when I moved, and it was just last year, I really didn't have room for all of that, and so and the color scheme didn't even match anymore. So I cast around. I have one granddaughter, and she said she wanted it. Now, she's in college still, and I think she has her other grandmother's china, and God knows what will really happen to it, in the long run, Patty. But it gave me pleasure that I could at least send it off to her at this
Well,
point.
they don't
That's another
entertain.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
Getting the pleasure of seeing them enjoying it while you're still alive.
Right.
I can go to their home and, I see
Right.
I can enjoy it because it's out of my house, but it's in their house still.
The other thing
A
is
lot of that,
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah.
gives me a lot of
and
pleasure.
it's a gift also to our kids to pare down to some degree, because when I was getting rid of things to make the move to Sarasota Bay Club, and thinking, how are we ever going to manage in 500 square feet smaller, and we could be on top of each other and all of that. But it was also, I kept thinking, this is disgraceful. What do we need all this stuff for?
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, we're doing this partly because it's time for us, but partly because it will be nicer for our kids not to have to deal with so much stuff,
That's a thought that
right?
stays with me, yes.
So,
Are your other poems similar, or do you
well,
have
are you
something
ready for another
different?
one?
Phyllis had something to say.
Yeah, Phyllis.
Yeah, I can remember. It was just that they don't entertain the way we entertain, and way maybe your mother entertained.
Right, because my mother's was very fancy.
We had
entertaining.
all the big meals in our house, holiday meals.
Right.
They don't do that anymore, and if they do it, I don't want to say it's on paper plates, but it's done in a simple way.
Yeah, it's
And
keep
they
it
don't
simple.
want our
Casual, casual.
You can't get insulted when they say they don't want them.
No.
Well,
Why
you
not?
can. You can get
Well-
insulted, but there's no percentage in it.
Years ago,
That's right.
years and years ago, why not? I can remember my mother, who's been gone 40 years, she used to go through her drawers where the linens were. I'm going to not use this for this party,
Yeah.
for dinner, because I'm saving it
Right.
for you, your sister, and your sister-in-law. I'm not going to use this, but I'm saving it. What are you saving it for? No one of them was more contemporary than the other. I am the least, and I don't want a linen tablecloth.
Oh,
I
linen and
want
organdy
to
and
throw
all
in
of those
the
fancy.
washing machine,
Right.
take it out, and it comes out beautifully.
Right.
And
You
that's
bought it
it.
at Bed Bath and Beyond. huh?
Right. So,
It's just, it's a different world, as we say.
It is. Dinner parties.
They're all out working. I don't know about all you, but I was a housewife. I wasn't working. And my daughter-in-law is full-time teacher, and it's my son's birthday today, my
happy
youngest son.
birthday, my brother.
And they're going to Richmond tomorrow. They live in Virginia. And I say, oh, what's in Virginia? What's in Richmond? I don't know, but we're gonna go and have a good day. And that's the way his birthday, it's fine. It's what they want to do. But it's not what maybe I would want to do on my birthday.
yeah, so I think you said it too, really, about if you're lucky enough, that doesn't even always happen either. that you're able to see that there are core values that you've passed on, that your children are living out in a way that really is meaningful to you, some of your deeper values. But on another level, they're living out their lives in a way that you would do differently. That's still what's the most satisfying about it. Doesn't matter whether they're using the fanciest tablecloths that you would have when you were doing it, because that's not what's really the story. My daughter in Boston, who has 2 cousins who ended up moving there with their families too, they still do the holidays. They still do Passover. They still do Thanksgiving together, and really it's good. I mean, it really makes my heart sing. And when I can get there, as long as they do things in the spring, because I don't want to go in the winter anymore. But they do it much more simply. You know, the tablecloths are much simpler, and their home is smaller. So, yeah. But sometimes they don't do anything the way we do it.
Instead of Spode, China, or all those different names, whatever they are, I think the new China is called Order Out.
Order out.
Order out.
Order out.
Oh, order out. Styrofoam containers.
Well, how many of you are still cooking all the time? Are you still cooking all the time?
I didn't get what you
And
said.
I have
Do you
Christmas
cook all the
dishes,
time?
I have
Do you
Easter
still cook?
dishes,
Now?
I have dishes
Never.
for
So you're
What'd
still
she say?
Never.
one at a
I
time.
don't cook now.
One
Yeah.
at a time.
I use my grandmother's linen tablecloth,
And you love all of
and
it.
it's beautiful, and I'm trying to relate to my 2 boys and only boy grandchildren that this is how it is. Thanksgiving, I use old salts that belonged to my grandmother, hand painted, put salt in it, and I explained to them what this was about. Now they listen, they're polite to Nana, but whether that impresses them or not, and
Are there grandchildren?
grandchildren, 19, 15.
So they're listening too?
Yeah, so they're listening. I like to use the old things. I like to sit they eat with a beer can on the table. There are no beer cans
She's
or
right.
Pepsi Cola cans on my table.
They
Put
might
it in a
change their
glass.
mind.
Yeah.
They
You're
might
absolutely
change their
right.
mind as time goes on.
And
because
so,
those
but it's like now, they're saying, well, what are you gonna do with the Christmas dishes? I said, I have no idea, that's your problem. Well, I want them. But then my other daughter-in-law, she wants them. So they want me now to buy 4 more place settings of Christmas dishes. So they both have 8.
And one of the things that I think that I found in my research is that an age is always defined by the age under it. Well, who is to tell us? You know, what is the right way to live for the age that we are in? Nobody can be more of an authority than the people who are living that age. So we don't have to define ourselves. I mean,
Right.
yes, we have to maybe make room for our other generations so that we understand what life is like for them. But as you say, when it's your house, I was just reminiscing with my Boston daughter when she first brought her husband to visit. We were setting the table in my kitchen in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she said, I'll put out the placemats. What placemats do you want? And I told her which ones, and she said, now she wasn't all that long away from home, but she was out of college and working and living in Boston. Oh, she said, you're still using those placemats? With that tone of voice, and I said, Susie, I like those placemats. She said, really? I said, listen, Susie, this is my house. You know, you can put whatever placemats you want, you know, when you have your house. Her husband to be, I don't know if they were engaged yet or not, he said, if my mother and I talked to each other like that, we would never talk to each other again. And Susie told me about it. We said, he thought we were having a fight. We were just
Over placemats.
well, we weren't having a fight. We were just straightening out whose boundaries were whose in whose house it was.